Our niche is really about building products that are simple, accessible, and that empower people to really make the most out of Web3. And really, our approach was to optimize to make crypto usable for the everyday person, particularly in emerging markets. And so we had to optimize for a few things. It's like, how do you make it accessible? Mobile is the way. How do you make it cost effective and global? And I think like crypto solved this when you compare it to traditional financial systems. Like still early days, but really the vision for this is that mobile equals access. And for billions of people out there, right, their mobile phone is the most important device, and they're often their only access to the internet. And we need to build products that are focused on that. And so that's really what Valora is aimed to do. Technology, particularly crypto, just has that transformative power, right, to kind of level the playing field. And again, I go back to like the evolution of the internet and like mobile adoption, and like having worked in that and seen that, I think this is actually a really exciting time for us in the crypto industry to further drive this technology, right, to, like I said, like level the playing field, increase access. And I think that like, we're so much closer than we were before, because again, like many people out there already have mobile phones, they're already pretty savvy with this. And so if you were to create something that is already in line with that, but just happens to kind of hold something very valuable like money, and helps them be more productive, they can help lead more prosperous lives.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Emerging Voices, an EmergingCrypto.io podcast, where we'll be segmenting Web3 thought leaders from emerging markets. I'm your host, John Lira, founder of EmergingCrypto.io, your single go-to source for Web3 news from emerging markets. Today, we will be speaking with Jackie Bona, CEO of Valora. If you want to learn more about Valora and how they're connecting the world and making money borderless, secure, and fast, you may go to valoraapp.com or search Valora in the App Store and Google Play Store. Jackie, thank you for joining and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Jackie, for the uninitiated, what is Valora?
So Valora is a mobile crypto wallet, and we really try to make crypto simple and accessible for all. And so things that you can do with Valora are essentially to send global peer-to-peer payments in a very easy and low-cost way. You can earn rewards. You can grow your crypto through decentralized apps, and really, we're the kind of starting point for the seller ecosystem. And so, really, the vision for Valora is to help put financial control into the hands of everyone. And so, a good thing to be on this podcast, because we are very focused on emerging markets and very focused on doing that through mobile.
Prior to leading Valora, your career has been time spent at high-growth tech companies. Where did you work? What were you doing? And how and when did your journey begin with Cello, Valora, and Web3?
Yeah, good question. So, I basically started my career off in tech a little over 15 years ago. I started off at Google, actually. And at the time, Google was just search. And we were very focused on, how do we make, search something that's global, but also something that is useful for people from an ads and monetization angle, because that was the group that I was in. I did everything there from, working with local businesses, supporting them through phone lines, customer service, even selling ads door to door. And so a very like local approach. But then I spent 8 years there, and actually my career spanned to work in many emerging markets. And so, once I really got a feel for the product, got to, work directly with customers, I really, wanted to work more on like, how do you get some of these insights from, people on the ground in emerging markets? And so, I joined a group that was very focused on how do you launch products and take that user feedback, work with product teams, work with sales teams, work with go-to-market teams to actually make these products relevant. And so, I spent time and lived, many emerging markets, spent 6 months in India, spent, a few months in Singapore working on Southeast Asia, came back to the US for a little bit, kind of refigured out what other, products I was going to work on. And then at the time we were actually working on YouTube. And so kind of expanding our horizons from just search to something a little bit more visual. Did that for a couple years. Obviously that, kind of looking back, that went pretty well. and then basically set our sights to expand that business line in Latin America. And what we were seeing down there was actually explosive growth, particularly in Brazil, but obviously the opportunity was the rest of Latin America. So moved down to that region. Lived in Brazil for 2.5 years, super fun, launching display and YouTube products throughout the region. And so that was a really formative years for me, not only in my career but also in my life, right? Like I said, it's like, when I was working at Google, it was not only working on new and innovative technologies and kind of building them as they go, but it was also working directly with customers and users firsthand to see how they were reacting to it. There was a big part of not only how do you build these products, but also education. And I think like that's also an opportunity that I see in crypto. And so you kind of fast forward. So after Google, I mean, I worked at some other companies, worked at Twitter for a few years, kind of did similar work there, and then also Spotify. And I don't want to gloss over that because those are also very formative times, and built great teams and worked with amazing people. But really, as I mentioned, I took all those lessons, launching products to different international markets, and really thought about like, well, how can I use this knowledge and this skill set and this experience um, to do this for a nascent technology, but something that's very powerful, but yet misunderstood. And I had a few kind of categories or industries in my mind at the time, and crypto was one of them. But really not at the top of my list, primarily because crypto, at least back then, or arguably now, just the culture didn't seem like it was a fit for me. I didn't really see a lot of people that looked like me. It wasn't very diverse. But luckily, I got introduced to Cello, and it's a very unique project, very focused on emerging markets. And the mission really resonated with me. And like I said, it's like I really wanted to take all of that experience and the knowledge that I had from launching and communicating products and new and innovating products in a different way, and actually apply that to crypto. And so here we are today, joined the Fellow team, pre us launching mainnet with the community. Really worked on, how do we actually kind of build this community up, communicate our offering in a differentiated way. In the meantime, we were also, using like the earliest version of Valora. It wasn't even Valora at the time, as a test app to actually do user research out in these emerging markets to actually make the blockchain, usable and also something where if applications were built on it, it could be used, by anyone with a mobile phone. And I really love that approach. And so, the rest is history in terms of, now Valora's a company, we're about 25 people. We have users in over 100 countries around the world. And it's really amazing to see. And again, like, it's still early days, but I still see that opportunity of how do you make this very powerful technology something that fits into people's lives, that is usable for them, and then something that they can understand and trust. And so that's really kind of the premise and the mission that we have with Valora in terms of making crypto easy, accessible, and usable. And so, so that's kind of how it relates to my background and where I'm at today.
What an interesting background and story, spent at important technology household names and now leading in a field, as you said, still relatively nascent and far from maturity. And let's briefly talk about the playing field and the current state of wallets before we spend the rest of our time talking together about Valora. Jackie, from your perspective, what is the current state of wallets? What are some wallets doing better than others? And what are some of the challenges that the ecosystem of wallets are facing that Valora is trying to work through and solve?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I think the current state of wallets, you have many wallets that are either attached to exchanges or to a specific chain or protocol. And what I'm seeing now is kind of blurring the lines between that, right? Because I think the hypothesis for many of us kind of in the wallet space is that at the end of the day, like users may not care what chain or what exchange or whatnot, like they just want to be able to kind of use it for a specific use case or something that's relevant to them. And so that's promising, right? Because I do think that this trend of simplification and also investing in better UX and design and just kind of making it easy is music to my ears because it's something that Valora has always been focused on. So I think overall, like that move and where wallets are moving to in terms of just simplifying the experience is really good for adoption and overall just getting more people in the crypto economy. And so I do think that like I guess that move will help help just give users better choices. Which is ultimately good, and obviously it keeps companies like us on our toes. But I do think that ultimately it's good for users. I think from a challenge perspective, it's not easy, right? Like interfaces are getting better, but fees can still be high, and the mobile experience is still lacking. So it's kind of like the parallel that people like to draw, kind of where crypto is today versus like where internet adoption is. It's like we're probably around like 100 million users. That's like the 1997 of the internet, right? And so it's like, yeah, like you can log in, you can kind of do these things, but the infrastructure and like these kind of killer use cases are yet to be seen, right? Like you still don't have like the Instagrams or the Slacks of the world like in the crypto space from a killer app consumer adoption perspective. And so I do think that there's still work to do, but I think that's fine because like we kind of have agreed like we're still in an early space. I think for us at Valora, like we're very focused on use cases. We're very focused on making it easy as possible. And so, we aim to do this by focusing on mobile and making crypto easy and useful, particularly focused on emerging markets. And so, the questions that we ask ourselves internally is that is this relevant for our user? Is it localized? Does it serve their use case? And is it easy for them? And is it accessible? And so, I do see it as our responsibility to kind of like iterate, refine, and design these systems to better fit into the lives of our users. And so, but overall, I do see that there's more of a desire and trend for the wallet kind of space to move into that direction, which ultimately is good for end users.
How do you see the competitive landscape of crypto wallets evolving in the next few years? And what will be the key differentiators that set successful wallets apart from the rest of the pack?
Yeah, I think that it comes down to just execution, right? Like there's different wallets right now that can serve different functions, and like I said, it's like a lot of them are trying to either simplify or blur the lines here. I think the simplifying the UX is one way to differentiate. So we'll see better design, more intuitive products. I also think use cases will be a big factor. So what could you actually do with the wallet? And a lot of that is right now is driven through the dApps and kind of the things that you can attach the wallet to. So I think that's pretty interesting. I think one kind of wild card, if I can just throw that out there, is actually social. And I try to draw parallels to like what's been happening or what's happened in kind of the evolution of the internet and kind of the introduction of mobile. And social, it's kind of like to drive mass adoption is like, is it fun? Is there a community? And I can see things like are there network effects that are driven by mobile, and whether that's inviting friends, texting money around the world. Like these are things that I've seen in kind of the horizon, and Valora being part of that. I think another kind of interesting area to think about when it comes to social is that like, do wallets take on a sense of identity and also a social connection similar to like a social network? So there's probably an opportunity to kind of build more community within that wallet experience, kind of similar to how the crypto community has coalesced around conferences and discords and online communities. And so like, how do you use those communities to build that social trust, or even just a sense of community and learning, with a crypto buddy, for example, in that journey, because this still is a nascent space, right? And I think especially with the events over the last like 6 to 12 months, like trust is something that we have to rebuild back. And so usually it's like when you build trust, it's like there's usually a friend or community or something like that that you're attached to. So that could be an interesting area as well from a differentiator perspective. And so just something to think about and explore.
Yes, we are in a particularly interesting period for crypto wallets as there seem to be many new projects cropping up to solve the ease of onboarding to Web3 and crypto from a UI UX perspective in order to drive adoption of crypto and Web3. How is adoption going for Valora, and what design principles guide Valora that may set it apart from the plethora of other wallets that's helping with the adoption?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that it's a tough time right now, just in general, because obviously, like the events of the past 6 to 12 months have not been good for the crypto industry overall. I would say that in terms of like our users are still fervently using Valora, active in over 100 different countries. And I think that it's an interesting time because, the people that are, kind of using crypto products right now are the ones that are the power users that are here to stay. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know if they're like at least in our sense, like they're not the degen or that type of user, right? And so I do think that while like the events of the past few months have definitely been a little bit shaky for the industry, we're still building something for real world use. And so, the technology is here to stay, and the use cases that we provide will still be here.
What has been the most significant challenge to design a wallet that appeals to a global user base that is also scalable for a global audience? And what has Valora done to overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely strive to make Valora as easy to use and as relevant as possible to people around the world. Localization is a big effort for us, and so we have the app localized in over 13 different languages. I can talk a little bit more about that as well in terms of because I know that you want to know kind of what user behavior, what user insights that we've used to kind of make the experience better for our users. I also think that on and off ramps are a challenge. And so, I mean, that's something that's industry wide. And so, we've put in a lot of work for that. And so I think that in addition to creating a very easy to use, accessible UX, I think our niche is really about building products that are simple, accessible, and that empower people to really make the most out of Web3. And really, our approach was to optimize to make crypto usable for the everyday person, particularly in emerging markets. And, so we had to optimize for a few things. It's like, how do you make it accessible? Mobile is the way. How do you make it cost effective and global? And I think crypto solves this when you compare it to, traditional financial systems. And this concept of how do you make it relevant, right? Again, we're very user focused. We invest in things like localization. We're very focused on emerging markets. And so, yeah, so we really try to optimize for that access. And again, still early days, but really the vision for this is that mobile equals access. And, for billions of people out there, right, their mobile phone is the most important device, and they're often their only access to the internet. And we need to build products that are focused on that. And so that's really what Valora is aimed to do.
How is the user engagement and feedback different between users in Asia or Africa or LATAM and Eastern Europe?
Yeah, I think that, we've seen more, I guess, peer-to-peer social usage from these types of emerging markets like Brazil, Africa, et cetera. Which is pretty interesting because they also have access to dApps. And I think it's still kind of an early concept for them to, how do you take a look at some of these dApps, kind of like an app store, right? And explore the different ways that you could actually utilize this crypto. And so I do think that that's an opportunity that we see is that while we want to obviously still encourage and facilitate better use of peer-to-peer payments and those types of use cases, I do think that the power of crypto is that it could help make those assets that you're sending more productive, right? Or just they could help you can grow your wealth through it. And so, how do you do this in a very in an easy and a lower risk way? I think that's that's definitely an opportunity and potentially a new concept that some of these emerging markets and that we can basically help educate them on. which I think is an exciting and challenging opportunity.
Brazil is one of Valora's largest markets in terms of use and adoption. What is it about Brazil that is driving people to use Valora?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I haven't mentioned, and I was kind of, kind of touching on this with dApps, is that the exciting thing about Valora is that, the app is actually used in tandem with many solutions in the Celo ecosystem. And with Brazil in particular, it has been used in conjunction with another fellow ecosystem company or a dApp called Impact Market. And so, they've done a lot of really great work in terms of, basically delivering a daily kind of UBI, universal basic income, to many people in emerging markets to basically, get them out of poverty. And especially in the earliest days of Valora, it was really exciting because, through kind of that partnership with Impact Market, we were able to see the app be used by people like in Brazil, in the favelas, for example. And it was really encouraging for us because we're like, oh, wow, like, if someone there, that obviously is like pretty tech savvy because they have a phone and, do all this stuff, but may not have a bank account, can actually use our app to receive these funds, exchange them within their local community, and sometimes even save their funds and trust us enough to hold those funds there, is really promising. And so, so a lot of that growth was driven, through that partnership with Impact Market, and again, like, very encouraging for us to see that. And again, like that was one of the things that we looked at from an emerging market point of view. It's like, okay, if someone in that community can easily use the app and find a use case, through Impact Market, then there's something there. Like we can continue to serve people in similar communities like this, which really kind of put us on the path to focus on emerging markets.
Let's move on to discuss bridging crypto and fiat. Off-ramps for crypto is something that I personally reflect on quite a bit from my conversations with thought leaders from emerging and developing markets. There continues to be growing demand to acquire and adopt cryptocurrencies, but most, if not all, local economies are still run on fiat with limited official consideration to accept crypto-based payments. And therein lies the problem in emerging markets. You can acquire crypto, but using it for payments is limited and it can be hard to cash out. And until the day comes in some markets where crypto-based payments are accepted in parallel with fiat, whether it be cash or electronic payments that are accepted today or CBDCs in the near future, the utility in the form of payment suddenly becomes limited. However, something that I find not only innovative in the context of blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and Web3, but also practical is the Celo Foundation's support for projects building on and off ramps around the world. And a year ago, last month, Celo launched its Connect the World campaign to support on and off ramp access and introduced FiatConnect. Jackie, what is the Connect the World campaign and the FiatConnect initiative? How are they solving the on and off ramp problems in crypto? And how is Valora involved?
Yeah, good question. So you hit the big challenge on the head by saying that, with crypto and specifically with, what Celo and Valora has built, it's like you can send money around the world very easily, but depending on where you send it, right? Like, is it readily available? And, especially for the everyday person. And that's still a big challenge, that all of us in the crypto industry face. And so this is where this initiative really came to light. And so it's been great to partner with the Celo Foundation on this because they're really putting resources right behind like this very important problem is like, how do you build an on and off ramp in every market in the world? And I think that like, for us at Valora, we partner with, some of the big kind of on and off ramps today. Like Ramp, for example, like has on and off ramps in many different countries around the world and has great coverage. But when you really think about some of these, smaller emerging markets, they don't have coverage there. And so for a lot of these users that actually need crypto to be able to kind of run their day-to-day lives, it's like, you need to service those markets too. So really about the Connect the World campaign, essentially it's an incentive program that the Cella Foundation is putting forward that's incentivizing these on and off ramp companies to light up these different ways to convert fiat to crypto in every market in the world. And so there's a sum of cash that they get, but also fee waivers to kind of help bootstrap and drive adoption in those markets. Where Valora comes in, the challenge that we've seen kind of with working with a lot of these types of providers is that you actually have to build a bespoke integration with every provider that you have to work with, right? It's a lot of work for a smaller company like us, but it doesn't give like the broad coverage and to be able to have to be able to like have these big providers work with every wallet or crypto solution. And so you can imagine something like WalletConnect, right? This is why this was built, right? Like, you as a user have a choice to use whatever wallet you want, but you want to link into a DApp. If you didn't have something like WalletConnect, it'd be kind of a mess, right? But so what FiatConnect is doing is essentially being the WalletConnect for on and off ramps. It's kind of like one thing that you plug into, and whether you're a provider or wallet, so it's like simplifying that experience, but it's also providing a native or simplified experience within the UX for the user as well, because that could also get confusing. So there's challenges, in terms that this program is intended to solve. And like I said, it all comes down to simplification, and whether that's like the UX, and whether that's like kind of building these solutions, or whether that's like getting more coverage in emerging markets. That's what this program is aimed to do. I would say that Q1 was actually, or this year was actually a big quarter for us, because it was the first set of live markets that we've actually launched in conjunction with this program. And so we have cash in, cash out solutions for, let me just get the list here. So Ghana, India, Kenya, Mali, Nigeria, Philippines, Uganda, Burkina Faso, Rwanda, Senegal, and Togo. And so just even from that, sample list of countries, I mean, you can see that these are, very much emerging market countries, right? That can have a use for these types of on and off ramps. And so excited to see that, and also the participation of some of our FiatConnect partners, like Bitmama, which is a Nigerian on and off ramp company, or Alpha Fortress, who also has built many of these on and off ramps in many of these emerging markets. And so it's exciting to kind of see that type of adoption and that traction. And couldn't have done it without the partnership of not only Cello, but also some of these other companies in the ecosystem.
What has been the reception from retail users in markets where FiatConnect is now offering an off-ramp, perhaps some of the markets you just mentioned, given that know your customer is a requirement? And has that been a sticking point at all in terms of adoption of the service?
Yeah, I mean, it's still early days, right? Like we just launched these countries just a couple months ago, and so we're seeing the response here from different retail users. Interestingly enough, we do have a research trip planned to go into Nigeria, because that's been one of the most active markets that we've seen to date. And so we'll be getting more information there. But in terms of the KYC requirements, these are some things that are actually handled by the on and off ramp providers themselves, since Valora is a self-hosted wallet. So I can't really comment on that.
Before we wrap, let's briefly discuss Valora's product roadmap. What are some upcoming features, partnerships, or initiatives that you're particularly excited about, and how will they contribute to Valora's growth and impact around the world?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the themes that we've been really investing in is continuing the investment in dApps, and therefore more use cases for users in Valora. And so, a big part of this is like working with the Cello community of builders in terms of how do you make the dApp experience easier and a better mobile experience. I do think that that's like, an opportunity for us to work together on that. And then, another theme is to how do you further discovery of these dApps and use cases easily in the wallet? And so you could already see signs of this in Valora already. Like we've been really focused on like making dApps more discoverable. And so, so one of the big partnership initiatives that we've been running right now is a thing called we're doing a dApp spotlight. And so what we're doing is that we're showcasing a specific dApp in the Celo ecosystem. So different ones like HaloFi, RE Gallery, Toucan, et cetera. And so these are all real world applications that people can interact with from anywhere in the world directly through the app. And so, really we're trying to highlight that you can do things like compete in savings challenges, retire carbon credits, make your own NFTs, et cetera. And, again, these are all real active applications that help you, as a user interact with these dApps today. And if you're already a Valora user, you've probably already seen it. But if not, then we're trying to really raise awareness of that. And so again, it's really touching on the fact that like how do you make crypto accessible and usable to that everyday person, and trying to highlight some of these great dApps in the ecosystem.
Well, we're just about at time. Last question about the future of Valora. Jackie, what's your personal vision for the future of Valora? And any final thoughts on the importance of financial inclusion and the potential of blockchain, cryptocurrency, and Web3 technologies to drive financial inclusion and transform our global financial systems?
Yeah, big question. But I think it just comes down to a practical question, right? It's like, it's 2023 and everything today is on demand, instant, and global, right? And so why can't our money be as well? And so for us here in the US, we have all these different solutions. However, if you're in an emerging market, or if you've ever tried to send money outside of the US, it's expensive, slow, or you just don't simply have access. And for me, like I've seen this my entire life. I'm originally from the Philippines, but grew up here in the US. It was always really difficult, right? And I've seen also the disparity between like the access that you have here in the US to opportunities versus not as many in these emerging markets. And so technology, particularly crypto, just has that transformative power, right? To kind of level the playing field. And again, I go back to like the evolution of the internet and like mobile adoption, and like having worked in that and seen that, I think this is actually a really exciting time for us in the crypto industry to further drive this technology, right? To, like I said, like level the playing field, increase access. And I think that like, we're so much closer than we were before, because again, like many people out there already have mobile phones, are already pretty savvy with this. And so if you were to create something that is already in line with that, but just happens to kind of hold something very valuable like money, and helps them be more productive, they can help lead more prosperous lives. So I think it's again early days, but really big work the crypto industry can do, and it's awesome to be part of this. And I know our team is super excited to continue to drive that mission.
Jackie, thank you very much for being a guest on the show and sharing your insights and perspectives. To learn more about Valora and how they're connecting the world and making money borderless, secure, and fast, you may go to valoraapp.com or search Valora in the App Store and Google Play Store. That does it for today's episode of Emerging Voices and EmergingCrypto.io podcast. I'm John Lira. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of Emerging Voices. If you enjoyed our content, please take a moment to like this video and share it with your friends. And to stay up to date with what's happening in Web3 from emerging markets, we produce a 5-minute, once-a-week newsletter recapping the week's Web3 news from Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Eastern Europe to help you stay informed and stay smart. Link to get access is in the description. And before you go, please subscribe to our channel. Thanks again, and see you soon.